Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. And someone will say his career can never be saved. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage.
Welcome to another installment of Just Nicolas Cage, where I very slowly work my way through Nicolas Cage's filmography. And today I'm talking about the 2002 drama Sonny. In Sonny, James Franco plays a guy called Sonny, who returned from the army and goes back home to his overbearing mother, who's the madam of a brothel where he used to work. His mother wants him to get back into the gigolo business, but Sonny wants to leave that life behind and work a regular job. And the film follows his trials and tribulations as he inevitably finds himself returning back to his old life. I'll say this right off the bat, Nicolas Cage is only in this movie for like 4 minutes as a cameo. In the past I've skipped movies that he's only cameoed in, and other times when I didn't skip the movie I regretted it. But this movie is special. It's Nicolas Cage's first and currently only time that he directed a movie. In terms of how he got involved with the movie, as far as I can tell, I think the script was floating around since the late 70s. Apparently Richard Gere was attached at one point, but did American Gigolo instead. So somewhere around the late 1980s, I think, Nicolas Cage found the script, and he loved it, but he couldn't find a director that wanted to be involved. So then over 15 years later, Nicolas Cage decided that he wanted to direct his first movie. And he reread that script and he decided to be the perfect project. And having seen the movie now, I can kind of see why it appealed to him. In fact, it reminded me a lot of another Nicolas Cage movie, Zandali. Both are angsty, artsy, sexually charged dramas set in New Orleans. And Nicolas Cage loves New Orleans. He even owns a pyramid tomb there. And there's other little things in Sonny that often crop up in Nicolas Cage films. The movie starts with the lead character fresh out of the army like in Red Rock West and Con Air. The main guy wears a leather jacket, which I know Nicolas Cage is fond of wearing, and of course there's tons of freakouts, which I'll talk about later. But first I want to talk about the screenwriter of Sonny. He's a man named John Carlin who doesn't have a Wikipedia page and I can't even find a picture of him. But from the small amount I could find about him online, it seems like he had a fascinating life. He was taken away from his safe-cracking parents as an infant, and then was then raised by his great-grandmother who ran a whorehouse, gambling den outlaw hangout. His grandmother wanted him to take over the family business eventually, so she pimped him out at the age of 9 years old. Until the age of 23 when he started a new career with the Bank of America, and then he robbed 28 of the bank's branches before being arrested. In jail he got involved with a writer's workshop and he began working on scripts. Once out of jail he worked as technical supervisor on the movie Straight Time and wrote several made-for-TV movies. But the most famous movie that he wrote was Sonny. And obviously you can tell that Sonny is semi-autobiographical. It's about a young man encouraged to be a prostitute by a female family figure. But what's also interesting is that the movie Straight Time that I mentioned he worked as supervisor on kind of feels thematically similar to Sonny, even though presumably John Carlin was only there to give first-hand knowledge about bank robberies and didn't actually work on the script. Straight Time is a good movie actually, I saw it a few years ago. Tarantino was apparently highly inspired by it, but when I watched it I thought, I bet the Safdie brothers love this. It has that escalating tension of bad decisions like Good Time and Uncut Gems. But anyway, Straight Time is about Dustin Hoffman's character trying to leave his life of crime behind him and get a straight job, but events that transpire keep pulling him back to his old ways, which is essentially what Sonny is about if you substitute robbery for prostitution. The idea of somebody trying to put their old life behind them but they keep getting pulled back in is obviously something that's been done a lot in other movies. But it's certainly a compelling idea and it's one of the more interesting elements of Sonny. Early on in the movie when the mother is talking about when Sonny used to be a prostitute, she mentions the white suit that he used to wear and wants him to put it back on so he can be right back where he was before he left. But Sonny rejects it, saying he's not in that line of work anymore. And after Sonny's job opportunity falls apart and he goes back to being a prostitute, he looks at that white suit in his wardrobe, but again he rejects it. And again his mother brings up the white suit and Jane Franco turns it down, saying that he wants to wear what he wants to wear. Showing that even though he's realized that he'll have to go back to his old life, he's still hanging on to that thread of his own individuality. And then a good bit later in the movie, after we've seen him turn a few tricks, he shows up to a party to sleep with the older woman in exchange for money, and lo and behold, he's wearing that white suit. I like that they didn't have a scene with him putting it on, or his mother asking him about it for the third time and him complying. The scene just starts with him wearing the white suit and you understand the full impact of what that represents. He's fully regressed back to that position that he tried so hard to resist. In his mother's words from earlier, he's right back to where he was. I thought that was a subtle but kind of powerful moment in the movie. It's just kind of a shame that most of the rest of the movie doesn't really work as well as that. A lot of this movie is kind of simplistic and one note. It kind of feels like you're going through the motions until the next James Franco outburst. It's only like 1 hour 40 or something, but it feels a lot longer and it takes its sweet time. And there's some scenes where I don't know why they weren't cut. I think we wouldn't have lost much if we didn't have the scene where James Franco blows on ice cream.
Why are you blowing on it? It ain't hot. He blows on his ice cream before he eats it. I guess I thought it was for sipping.
You blew on her ice cream?
And there's other times where I think they thought they were going for symbolism or something deep, but it didn't really go anywhere. Like the part where it randomly name drops The Stranger by Albert Camus, but it doesn't feel earned. I did quite like the ending of the movie though. It made it seem like it was going to be a corny, typical, happy conclusion, but then it ended on an ambiguous note that I think worked. In terms of Nicolas Cage's direction, I was half expecting this to be like a Harmony Korine style movie, with all these weird cuts and audio loops and fever dream style montages. But Nicolas Cage is mostly quite restrained as a director here in terms of the filmmaking, editing, and general style of the film. There's one part where Jane Franco drives to Texas that's edited like an MTV music video from like the early 2000s for some reason. And once Franco's character hits rock bottom and gets drunk, there's a few quirky little choices, like the booze bubbling loudly, this time-lapse shot, and a weird circle blur around the screen, which I thought that blur was meant to show his drunken point of view. But then there's other scenes not from his point of view that do that circle blur thing, which I didn't like as much. I think if they just kept that blur on the POV shots, it would have worked better. But all these tricks are relatively effective in conveying Franco's character's drunken state of mind. And outside of that, like I said, the rest of the filmmaking is quite conventional. So let's talk about the performances. Jane Franco is the lead actor. Fun fact for you, Tommy Wiseau agreed to Jane Franco playing him in The Disaster Artist because Sonny is one of his favorite films. If you asked me to guess what Tommy Wiseau's favorite Jane Franco movie was, I probably would have guessed that James Dean movie that he was in. Because Tommy Wiseau loves James Dean, and Jane Franco does look like him. He's got that James Dean daydream look in his eyes. But having seen Sonny, it makes sense why Tommy Wiseau would connect to this. Like The Room, it's about a tortured soul who feels at odds with society's expectation of him, and they both trash a lot of furniture and have uncomfortable sex scenes. What is kind of interesting is that, like I said earlier, Sonny reminded me of Zandali, and in my review of Zandali, I compared it to The Room. Sonny, Zandali, and The Room would make quite the triple bill, by the way. So back to Jane Franco. Elephant in the Room, there's a lot of bad allegations about him, some of which he's admitted to, but separating the art from the artist, Jane Franco is quite good here. His performance is mostly quiet and underplayed, but effective. But because of the man behind the camera, you better believe he has some freakouts. Or should I say freaks and geeks outs? No, I shouldn't actually, because that's a terrible joke. But yeah, there's about 3 or 4 times where he just goes from 0 to 100 and starts screaming.
Why, am I unclean? Am I not clean enough for you? Am I sick? Is that why? I'm better than all you fucking bullshit squares. I'm better than you. I'm better than all of you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Do you know that thing where you see an actor in a lot of things and you get to know them so well that when they direct a movie that they're not starring in, you can tell when the actor is being a surrogate for them? Like you often get that with Woody Allen movies where the actor is being a proxy for him. Well, I definitely could feel Nicolas Cage being channeled in these parts, especially the freak out in the car. That is pure Cage. As for the rest of the cast, Brenda Blethyn is an acclaimed actress. She's won multiple awards and she was nominated for 2 Oscars. With that being said, Sonny is not one of her better performances.
I first met Herman about 30 years ago. I'd just been turned out. Herman was in the army, home on leave. We set up house down in Galveston. And I tried to square up, but it was hard.
She's certainly going for something big, but I don't think her performance is good at all here. And honestly, her scenes drag the movie down in terms of overall quality. I did get some entertainment value out of her questionable accent, though.
Now, the bondsman says he wants to spend a little time with you tonight, or he won't pull Henry till Monday. So after we get him out of the jail, I want you to take the money over to his office and give him what he wants. See?
And don't forget that the director whose job it is to give her feedback about her southern accent is this guy.
Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, 'cause this boy's coming home to his ladies. Coming home forever.
Mina Savari plays a prostitute that befriends Sonny, and she's good. She's mostly understated and her character is likable. There's an effective scene where she bursts into tears after seeing a dog nursing her puppies. I assume it's making her think about the role of motherhood and nurturing that she probably won't be able to have if she stays a prostitute. but Gianfranco tellingly doesn't really understand why she's upset. It's a great scene, but there's a moment right after it where she's crying in the rain where her acting was a little bit iffy. But otherwise I liked her performance. Then we have Harry Dean Stanton, who does a great job. I'm a big fan of Harry Dean Stanton. He's always good. Even if you don't know his name, you've probably seen him in something. He was also in Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage, and that movie Straight Time I mentioned that the writer supervised on. He gives by far the most natural feeling performance in the movie. And there's a great part where a waiter of a restaurant tells Brenda Blethyn to put shoes on, so he threatens him with a knife. So let's get to the part that I've been dying to talk about. Nicolas Cage's cameo. He's only in the movie less than 5 minutes, but man oh man does he make them count. Nicolas Cage plays a gay pimp named Acid Yellow. He's got a Kemp Southern accent.
Sonny, my God, sweetheart. What are you doing here knocking on my door? Mark, fix Sonny here something sweet to drink.
He kinda looks like a character Sam Hyde would play in a skit. I also wrote in my notes that it looks like he's dressed like Liberace. And then I found out later that he's literally wearing a jacket that once belonged to Liberace that Nicolas Cage purchased. He's also holding a cane that turns into a sword, and he's doing coke next to 2 dyed poodles.
I love cold cock.
It's also implied that he has AIDS.
Excuse me, I haven't been feeling well lately. I think I got that new bug, but...
His whole cameo is a balls-to-the-wall bonkers part of the movie that doesn't even really feel in tone with the rest of the film. It's more like something out of Boogie Nights or something, but I wouldn't want it any other way. It's great knowing that all of these affectations were Nicolas Cage's idea. This is what he comes up with when there's nobody telling him no. He read that script and said, I want to play a gay pimp with a sword. And that's awesome. I bet he had a blast and I loved his cameo. So overall, I'm kind of mixed on this movie. I think a lot of people would watch it and just see it as an unremarkable, drawn-out melodrama, which it kind of is, but I think I got more out of it than the average moviegoer would because I was picturing the man behind the camera. The whole time I was thinking, oh, I wonder why Nick Cage did this and that. And it was also interesting picturing this as a lost Nicolas Cage film, because I could definitely see him starring in this around the time Zandali came out. But outside of that, the movie does have a couple of highlights like the Gianfranco loses his shit moments, and of course the Nicolas Cage cameo, but there's also things that don't work, like Brenda Blethyn's performance and the pacing. And it's not a particularly great film. I'd only recommend it to the Nicolas Cage aficionados. I would like to see Nicolas Cage direct again, though. A director's first film isn't always the best indication about their style. Wes Anderson's first movie, Bottle Rocket, doesn't overtly look or feel like a Wes Anderson film. But Nicolas Cage did show some promise here, and I did think his voice did shine through in some moments. Nicolas Cage recently said in an interview that after over 100 films, he's pretty much said all he has to say was cinema. And instead he's pivoting to television. And maybe that also means that one day he'll direct an episode of a TV show, who knows? So the next movie Nicolas Cage did is Adaptation, and I've seen it, it's a good one. So until next time guys, thanks for watching.